If I have to hear the phrase evil Bucky ever again, I think I'm going to rip my cranium from my spine. This little guy is Bucky Beaver. No, not that one. And he's the protagonist of Shipwrecked 64. And he's not a fucking murderer! If you're in the online horror community, you've probably at least heard of Shipwrecked 64, created by Squeaks D'Corgeh and available on Steam. You might have seen the rabbit with no arms, you might have glanced at it and thought, another mascot horror, not worth my time.
Wrong, sir.
While I don't blame you for jumping to this conclusion given the current state of horror games, I promise you're missing out big time. If you haven't played it, or if you haven't watched someone else play it, I highly recommend you do so before watching this video, mostly because I'm not here to hold your hand and walk you through the plot. I'm here to psychoanalyze the N64 Beaver. You can keep watching if you want, just be prepared to have a lot of stuff spoiled for you. If you're stubborn and you're still here, I'll give you a brief overview anyway. I'm feeling nice.
Hey, everyone! I need your help!
The story of Shipwrecked, the game, consists of indie game studio Cogware making a game for Broadside Animation Company, featuring its mascot Bucky Beaver, and his friends Walter Walrus, Olive Otter, and Giovanni Goose. But when the lead developer, Connor, finds out that the company and its CEO are hiding human experiments and covering up murders, Shipwrecked 64 becomes an attempt to expose the truth to the public, rather than a real game. What you play is a modern, recreated version of the original from 1997. Got all that? Good. Down the rabbit hole we go. Modern horror has always been a mixed bag for me. A ton of games that could have been at least decent have been thrown to the wayside by developers trying to make a quick buck. Analog horror has become a copy-paste machine, ranging from a few real standouts to mediocrity to just plain offensive. When I found Shipwrecked, I, like some of you, wasn't expecting any different. I was so confident that I wouldn't care that I put Nightmind's video essay on as background noise while I fixed my air conditioner. It's a good video, by the way, I'll link it in the description. Where I expect to be bored at best and pissed off at worst, I was shocked to find my air conditioner unfixed while I intently digested the plot of the game. And thus the spiral began. I watched a few more videos, played the game myself, if camping in barrels for 20 minutes and almost crying from being scared counts as playing the game, and I browsed the wikis. I also ended up joining the Broadside Beach Discord server, and my obsession just kinda grew from there. Through all of this, though, I started getting a nagging feeling that this rabbit hole went even deeper than I anticipated. I felt like I was trying to melt an iceberg with a hairdryer. I was missing something. Then, after a few months, it hit me. It was Bucky. No, I didn't discover that he was secretly the murderer the whole time, or that he's a dead kid haunting the cartridge. I discovered that, despite looking like that, Bucky's a remarkably human character. But everyone was too busy shoving him in the mascot horror trope box that no one else seemed to be noticing. Needless to say, knowledge is a curse, there is no cure for autism, and now the entire internet's lack of media literacy has pissed me off to the point of making an hour-long video essay. Jokes aside, this honestly wouldn't bother me if it wasn't so important. I would just let it go and happily ramble to my friends, but it is that important. Bucky's depth as a character is central to the deeper horror of Shipwrecked, whether the player realizes it or not. You're probably too focused on Connor and Broadside and the Starlings and to focus on that. So is the rest of the internet, so don't feel too bad. But the more I looked, the more glaringly obvious it became that Bucky himself was constantly sidelined or treated like a soulless mascot, even by the people who agreed the game was great. Yeah, Bucky serves as a conduit for the player to explore the island and discover its secrets, but he also has a history, and friends, and family, and feelings, for God's sake. Quote-unquote evil Bucky does not make sense as a concept. Because truly great characters are more complex than good or evil. I'm here to convince you that this guy is one of the best characters in modern horror. And if I haven't done so by the end, then I'm not sure what will convince you. We start getting hints about Bucky's character from the moment the game opens. With the Beaver front and center, it's clear that he's the leader of the little ragtag group of low-poly animals. He's got a bright smile, a round, friendly character design, and a charming little sailor outfit to boot. If you wait too long on this screen, though, the camera begins to slowly pull towards Bucky's face, the color draining from the sunny ocean scene. His smile seems a lot more hollow than it did before, staring blankly at some area beyond the camera. As the weird, howling ambiance grows, within the black bars on the side of the screen, a man appears. We'll get back to him later. When you get into the game itself, Bucky greets you with a cheerful wave, recounting his woeful tale of the titular shipwreck that left his friends to be taken by wolves. But that's okay, he trusts you to help him find his friends and get them all to safety again. Depending on which ending you decide to go for in the 2023 edition, you can decide to save your friends, save the whole island, or let everything burn in the inevitable volcano eruption. You achieve this by completing minigames hosted by Bucky's friends, the leader of the wolves aptly named Chief Wulf, Stumbler O'Hare, and the mysterious JD. Bucky gives you helpful tips, teaching you the controls and how to complete the minigames as you go. But you came here for a horror game, right? You aren't interested in fixing a boat. If you go for the true ending, you know, the one where you force Bucky to abuse his friends and get hooks dug into his spinal cord and force him to run around a pitch-black labyrinth filled with monsters, he's less cheerful. When you begin failing the minigames, solving more puzzles, and getting deeper beneath the Nulla Terra, Bucky's demeanor sours very quickly. He chastises you for hurting his friends out of your own sick curiosity, tells you to use your damn head, and to go back to the island. One thing is very, very clear. He does not want to do this. But of course, you press on anyway. Upon entering the Frontier Street Museum after witnessing Giovanni's mascot actor...
Apparently I can't talk to him. Oh my god! Oh!
Making friendly acquaintances with the local oil fryer, Bucky and the player get a glimpse into Bucky's past. His creator, his beta design, old cartoons, his rabbit predecessor, until you get to an old cartoon title card titled Grave Mistake, featuring Bucky's original design laying in a coffin. When you look at it, Bucky says something eerily jarring about wishing he could be buried as well. Another image reveals a picture of a man, uncomfortably similar to the image haunting the title screen. Bucky expresses his obvious contempt for the man, and you just move on. It's just a silly video game Easter egg after all. Most players don't even stay on the title screen long enough to recognize him. By the time you reach Layer 3, Bucky's begging you to reconsider. He wants his friends back. He wants to go home. But you carry on anyway, with Bucky claiming that whatever happens next, it's on you. Solving puzzles, frantic dashes for golden computers, getting hunted by monsters in the plaza. It's a white-knuckle nightmare for the player. You're constantly on edge. And, as previously mentioned, I was too much of a baby to even finish it. If you get caught, though, thrown in the jail cell, Bucky finally tells you how he really feels.
You are the bane of my existence, friend. I mean, really? Really? You got us locked in a cell! What is wrong with you? Let it be known, friend. I hate you. Genuinely. Remember when I asked you to take me home? Yeah, that! Whatever happened to that? Why am I even calling you that? You're not my friend! I don't even know you! Just keep going. I don't care anymore.
Bucky barely says a word for the rest of the game. He's accepted that he's powerless, so you almost forget he even spoke in the first place. continuing your trek through caves of flesh and hunting for strange wooden effigies that promise answers. And when it's all done, and you know the truth about Mark and Connor and Harley and the murders, the screen fades. When it fades back in, Bucky's hunched over in a dark hallway, with the player no longer able to sprint. Bucky comments on what a lovely day it is, and that he could really use some fresh air. With nowhere else to go, you move forward towards a light, revealing a balcony on a large apartment complex. As you step slowly towards the edge, Bucky makes one final request of you, the one who's left him powerless to even use his own body. At the beginning of the game, you see what most people see. The cheery, encouraging, classic good guy that's been the face of Broadside animation for decades. Even Chief Wulf can eventually see that he's really a good guy who meant no harm, and just wanted to help as many people as he could. Yet so many people seem to hate him. In-game, most of Bucky's character is developed through subtext and other characters' opinions on him. Probably why he's mischaracterized by most of the internet. Walter and Olive see him as a friend, Stumbler as a friendly acquaintance, Wulf as a bit of a troublemaker, the other wolves see him as a bad omen, an object of ridicule, or they just flat out hate him, and Giovanni, well, I could do a whole other video about what's going on with that guy. The point is that Bucky's character is more so built by the negative space surrounding him, not his own thoughts or feelings. It creates a distance between him and the player, dehumanizes him, makes Bucky feel more and more disconnected and isolated from everyone around him, and the world he's inhabiting. He doesn't belong here. He has no control over his life, and you are making him intrude on things he isn't meant to see. The most important thing to internalize for the rest of this video is that Bucky is alive. Not in the sense of a classic haunted cartridge Sonic.exe been drowned situation. He's not breaking the fourth wall for the sake of making the game spooky. The game isn't possessed by vengeful spirits. In the game you're playing, in the world of Shipwrecked 64, Bucky Beaver is a real person. Beaver, whatever, you know what I mean. Don't believe me? Then don't take my word for it. Take the game's. Or more accurately, take Stumbler's. Stumbler and Wulf are both aware of the nature of their existence as characters in a game, as well as the real people they're based on, Harley Mullins and Connor Thomas respectively. And while we'll discuss them more in depth later, they've mostly made peace with that fact. When you and Bucky enter Layer 3, graffiti litters the walls. It's creepy, sure, gives the area a spooky vibe, but it's also all intentional. You will find that everything in this game is intentional. One of Stumbler's drawings depicts a silhouette of Bucky's face, with a third eye open. It's easy to miss, easy to brush off as just scary imagery, but it isn't. Third eyes are commonly representative of higher knowledge, beyond the realm you yourself exist in. Enlightenment, in a way. This isn't a spooky painting made to create atmosphere. Sure, it does that, but it's really a warning. Stumbler's trying to warn Bucky, not you, that the horrible knowledge isn't going to end. He's going to be enlightened, whether he wants to or not. This is a good thing for us, we get lore. Not so much for Bucky. What makes for great storytelling and scares for us leaves Bucky in complete existential dread about his identity and his life as a whole. I don't blame him. If I found out someone was using my skin to murder people, I'd be pretty upset too. But when you think about it for a few seconds, he seems a lot more accepting of all this than the normal character finds out they aren't real trope. Combined with I wish I could be buried too, you might get the sense that this ideation runs a lot deeper than the events of the game. And you'd be right. Bucky's strange relationship with death didn't start with Shipwrecked or the Starlings, or even the player. It started with... In the Frontier Street Museum in Layer 2, a voice over a speaker tells you the story of Rex Broadside, an aspiring animator who has an unfortunate Disney arc, making a beloved rabbit character, only to have a corporation cheat him out of it. But just like Disney, Rex bounces back, creates a new character, and his success grows from there. Unlike Disney, Rex doesn't treat his metaphorical Mickey Mouse with the same good nature. Fueled by the contempt of having his original creation taken away, Rex takes it all out on Bucky by essentially torturing him, hanging him by his leg and beating him to death like a piñata, burying him alive, drowning, crushed by scaffolding, eaten by alligators, pretty much any horrible fate you can think of that poor Beaver was subjected to. According to an email from Stumbler, up until his redesign, Bucky was brutally and creatively murdered at the end of every single cartoon. And the Bucky we play as, in Shipwrecked, remembers all of it. Bucky hates his creator almost as much as his creator hates him. Who wouldn't in his position? I'd certainly be a little pissed at the guy who got rich and famous by torturing me. But the game is careful not to demonize Rex. Honestly, it does the opposite. He could have had a lot worse coping mechanisms for being a manipulated young artist, after all, but he chose to vent his anger through art, like so many of us do. He didn't think Bucky would gain sentience, let alone remember everything he did. What's fascinating about Rex and Bucky's relationship, or lack thereof, is that neither of them are technically in the wrong. Rex had every right to vent his frustration through art. Like I said, he didn't know Bucky was alive. The game doesn't even directly tell you what Rex did, so Bucky's irritation seems unjustified at first. On the other hand, Bucky has every right to hate Rex. I mean, he's been torturing him for decades. It's a good conflict hidden in plain sight. It's nuanced, but it also dehumanizes Bucky even more, by making Rex out to be the good guy. The whole museum is dedicated to putting Rex on a pedestal. It's sad seeing Bucky's feelings being brushed over and treated as inconsequential, or not even being acknowledged in the first place. It was decades of torture for him. It's just silly video game lore for us. It ironically reflects Bucky's own issues with his identity, with Rex's legacy being polished and displayed in a digestible way, in the same way Bucky was reduced to a mascot and not a character. This museum is the very same where Bucky drops, "I wish I could be buried too," eerily reminiscent of Brandon's pop-up, "I wish I could rot like you." What we as the player don't realize at that point is that Bucky's not a blank slate. He's not saying this stuff because it makes the game spooky. He didn't pop into existence when we downloaded the game. He remembers everything. In his mind, we're probably just as bad as Rex, torturing him for our own means with no regard that he's even conscious to feel it. That's probably why he just gives up on trying to reason with us after a while. This is just how his life is always going to be. The least we could do is put him out of his misery. Even when Rex passed away and Bucky was left in the care of Mark Mullins, the CEO of Broadside, his life didn't really improve that much. No matter who has control of his life, be it Mark or the player or Rex, Bucky seems miserable. Even the rest of the internet feeds into this idea, making Bucky out in thumbnails to be some deranged killer when he's objectively done nothing wrong, except apparently be mad at you for hurting his friends. He's not a person to the people in the real world, both here and in the universe of the game. He's not even a character. He's an object, a concept. He can't really seem to catch a break, no matter what. But it's not all bad. By now, we've established that Bucky's sentient, his in-universe reason for existing, and how he behaves in-game. But to dig deeper, we need to analyze his personal relationships. Enter Walter, Olive, and Giovanni. Like Bucky, they seem pretty bare bones initially, the cowardly sidekick, bubbly best friend, and grumpy rival. Unlike Bucky, they don't survive long enough for us to get to know them. But fear not, for I have scoured far and wide to bring the people what they want. Walter and Bucky are brothers. If you didn't know that, you do now. If you know me personally, you know I care about them.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm calm. I'm fine. I'm calm. I'm fine. I need to do little spinnies. I need to... Sorry. I'm fine. I'm fine.
A normal, healthy amount. The impression you get of Walter in-game is nothing spectacular. If anything, he seems like a bit of an airhead, getting his boat stuck in the dam and needing Bucky's help. If you complete the minigame, he simply expresses his gratitude, tells you he'll meet you at the beach. If you fail the minigame, you get a weirdly tame clip of the Bucky costume looming over someone. I wonder if that's important. Of course it's important, don't be stupid. But Walter's a lot more complicated than just the doofy sidekick. Walter grew up in a family who always seemed to be disappointed in him. His parents had a very hands-off approach. I believe the technical term is neglectful pieces of shit, to the point he'd wander off frequently, to his parents' total apathy. One day when he wandered off too far and got lost, he was found by a young teenage Bucky, who helped him try and find his way home. When the whole ordeal proved unsuccessful and Walter's parents never came looking for him, they decided to stick together, and they've been adoptive brothers ever since. According to Squeaks, Walter's parents were happier not having to deal with him, claiming he was a problem child. This is who they're calling a problem child. I will
look for you. I will find you, and I will kill you.
A normal, healthy amount. It really is heartwarming how much Bucky and Walter care about each other. Sure hope nothing happens to them. Walter's past led to him being a not very well-adjusted adult. He's desperate for approval and validation, driven by his feelings, and very reliant on Bucky to stand up for him. He's terrified of almost everything, notably abandonment and instability given his past. In fact, he's so scared of the concept of smoking that the pipe he is sometimes seen with blows bubbles instead of smoke. Dear God, give this walrus a hug. In the good ending of Shipwrecked 2023 edition,
Me too. What? What?
you see Walter go off on a separate boat, despite him being with the others in the title screen. It was confirmed by Squeaks that when he heard Bucky might be in danger after the crash, Walter got on his own boat to go save him. Granted, he also got wrecked and needed Bucky to help him, but it's the fact that he believes Bucky is someone worth facing his fears for, despite how deeply ingrained Walter's insecurities are. He values his older brother more than he values himself. Bucky's own past also left him as a fairly unstable adult. When his parents passed away, he was already able to go out and live on his own as a teenager, so he grew up pretty fast. While only being a few years older than Walter, Bucky managed to raise him as an older brother/parent as best he could. Nowhere is the relationship better captured than in Hotel 09, where Walter is, ironically, nowhere to be found. Similar to Bucky, a lot of Walter's characterization in Hotel 09 comes from other people's points of view, most notably Bucky's phone call in the waiting room and the sister story Room 103, a series of journal entries from Olive and Giovanni based on their time in the hotel. Walter is described as passive, a quote-unquote nervous wreck, usually more of a doormat than a person, and just a bit... oh, how do I put this affectionately? He's a little bit stupid sometimes. He's a big softy who treats the rest of the world with kindness it often doesn't deserve, even if he is a bit simple and naive. He's not an angry person by any stretch of the word. Until Giovanni says one too many shitty things about Bucky. Sweet, passive, soft-spoken Walter, who has never once in his life stood up for himself, gets into a fully fledged screaming match with Giovanni in defense of his brother. I'd make a joke about the devil shivers when a nice guy loses his temper, but the argument just hits too hard, exemplifies how much Bucky and Walter mean to each other even when they're alone. Bucky is not a hero. He's not someone to look up to. He's a kid that was forced to grow up too fast and never really adjusted to the responsibility of it all. He's unstable and paranoid, and he cracks under pressure so easily he may as well be made of porcelain. But when he picks up the phone in the waiting room, you don't hear that in his voice at all. All you can hear is him reassuring his little brother that everything's going to be okay.
Hello? Oh, Walter, it's you! I'm so happy to hear it! What happened? What do you mean you don't know where you are? Come on! Well, you have to give me something at least. Oh, Walter, what are you doing? Look, I can help you. You need to give me an exact location, okay? How am I supposed to find you then? Look, I'll figure it out. Just give me time, okay? I'll be there, I promise. Okay, just stay safe, alright? Bye.
Bucky is paranoid in High 09, beyond belief. He thinks everyone is out to get him, he's jumpy, he just wants Walter to be safe. Both the Wiki and Squeaks himself have discussed Bucky's instability. That all in all he's kinda pathetic. His bravery is mostly surface level, keeping up the facade because his friends are relying on him, especially Walter. Even though they're his friends, he's so used to carrying the weight of the world that he's too scared to be open with them. Ironically, his desperation to keep people safe often inadvertently leads to him pushing them away. Bucky, whose paranoia has consumed him to the point of violence and panic, is pushing through it all and being brave for Walter, who he knows is probably just as scared and alone as he is. Bucky's emotions may be a lot more complicated, to the point that he envies how simple Walter's mindset is, but he'll be damned before he abandons him. Even the one tenuous moment in their relationship, Walter's "you're as inconsiderate as I remember" when you skip through his dialogue, isn't even directed at Bucky. It's Connor talking to Mark through Walter. On the topic of Shipwrecked, remember the Dwellers? Remember Stumbler's description of them appearing when Bucky's friends are transported to Layer 3? Remember how the Walter Dweller uses dialogue that calls Bucky's name and asks him for help?
Bucky, I really bad today. Helping your help. Stay out of the way.
The Starlings are scary, sure. They're really good monster designs. But they become more heartbreaking than terrifying when you realize you're making Bucky run through a labyrinth where a monster wearing his brother's skin is constantly trying to lure him out of hiding, possibly to kill him. Remember, Bucky's sentient through all of this, being puppeted by you. This is where Bucky's depth as a character becomes the focal point of the horror. This is where all the subtext and subtle details make the scary parts of this game truly terrifying. But don't worry, Walter's not the only one you torment. As terrified as I was that Olive would end up as the token girl character, I was very thankfully proven wrong. She calls out Giovanni on his bullshit, she bites things when she's mad, bubbly and fun when she's around people she likes. She sleeps late, stern when she needs to be without being obnoxious. She's just genuinely a really charming character with a lot more relatability than I expected. The fact that she cares so much about Bucky and is so willing to defend him, like she does in Room 103 when he's not even present, shows that she believes he's a genuine person worthy of defending. If she doesn't think you're worth her energy, she will let you know. Hence her constant snarky comments towards Giovanni. In the April Fool's update, Bucky says that Olive is lovely, that she's always cared about him. They've been friends since they were young, and Olive is Bucky's support in the same way Bucky is Walter's. She's probably... she is the most stable member of the group, and she usually serves as the mediator. Even the reveal of Olivia Finch's murder is as blunt and objective as she is. When failing Olive's minigame, there's no initial jump scare, no shock value, just a recording of Olivia's final phone call, and a quiet recreation of the death. It's just an abstract representation of her relationship with Bucky, a stable middle ground. It's honestly a refreshing change from girl character is boy character's love interest because reasons. Bucky's way too unstable for a relationship, so they really are just genuine friends and have been for a long time. And in your quest for answers, you make Bucky beat the shit out of her. Multiple times. We find out from her in Room 103 that Bucky has a lot of self-esteem issues, a detail supported by Bucky talking about how discontent he is with his own reflection. He's insecure about almost everything about himself, and Olive and Walter support him as best they can. But... he has a body count. He's killed 2 people? If this is news to you, this shit's only gonna get worse. When you meet Giovanni in Shipwrecked, he's grumpy and rude, sure, but you figure that's because of the whole held hostage by wolves thing. You laugh at how comically rude he is, calling Bucky a rodent and a stupid rat when he messes up his minigame. But this runs far deeper than any grumpy side quest dialogue. I'm not gonna beat around the bush here, that goose is awful. I'm mostly gonna focus on his horrendous relationship with Bucky here, but I could do a whole other video unpacking his baggage alone. The first major clue that exemplifies the rocky quote-unquote friendship between Bucky and Giovanni doesn't come from any dialogue, but the 1997 minigame failure. When you fail Walter's minigame, you get a fairly tame video of the Bucky mascot that withholds all the gory details of Nathan's death. Told you it was important. When you fail Olive's, you get the creepy but objective view of Olivia's murder. But Giovanni... If the cutscenes are an indication of Bucky's dynamic with his friends, then it's clear that Giovanni has no regard for his feelings. The recording spares no detail, Gary's distorted screams replace Giovanni's dialogue, a video of the corpse after the fact, a recreation of the death with Giovanni's model. It's all painfully in your face. It only continues when you enter the diner. The red lighting, the statue of the Bucky mascot is front and center, the golden reminder of the murders that Brandon committed in Bucky's image. From the moment you enter, everything is wrong. This is only exacerbated by Waltz, a song that, if you've glanced at my channel, you know I have a very special place in my heart for. Waltz is not really a waltz. If you know music theory, you know a traditional waltz is in 3/4 time. In Shipwrecked, waltz is 3/4, 3/4, 2/4. Just one note off from being a true waltz. The minor key, the slightly incorrect time signature, the general uncomfortably visceral energy of the song is so unlike the rest of the soundtrack. It's really a brilliant song in the way it emphasizes that something is deeply wrong here. A waltz in name but not in practice, similar to how Bucky calls Giovanni his friend, when in reality all the guy does is torment him. Moving beyond the diner, you find the previously mentioned museum, where Bucky finds the memorabilia of his creation, reminders of the creator he hates blaring over a speaker, and literally staring back at him. The gallery shows the faces of the corpses he's seen, Everything about Giovanni's Layer 2 is brutal and obvious and painful. In Room 103, Giovanni berates Bucky when he isn't even present, assuming every minor inconvenience is his doing.
Bumped into Giovanni in the hall today, and by instinct he squawked out, "You stupid rat! Watch where you're going!" Before stopping himself when he realized he hadn't bumped into Bucky, but me, in which he stood up and apologized. The argument was about Bucky again. I came in and asked Giovanni about the hallway incident from earlier, and I asked him what his issue with Bucky is. Why does he hate him so much? So, let me get this straight. He's always in the way, he's rude to me, never is comfortable around me. All of these problems are extensions of you.
I don't want to get into it, but Walter began making all these unreasonable demands, like he expected me to kiss the ground this filthy creature walked upon. I'm not going to. Anyways, he stormed out after the argument, telling me people would hate you if they knew you.
It gets worse, somehow. Beyond viewing basic decency and respect as kissing the ground he walks on, Giovanni relentlessly digs into Bucky's insecurities, going so far as to insult his weight when his sentimental sailor's uniform doesn't fit as well as it used to. From the moment they met, Giovanni has deemed Bucky inferior to him in every way. Same with Walter, because they simply, quote-unquote, haven't done anything valuable with their lives. To him, at least. You would think as someone who was always told to shoot low, that he would never be successful, and had to work hard for the recognition he has, he'd be a bit more humble. Unfortunately for literally everyone around him, that is not the case. He's arrogant, he's mean. It seems like Giovanni's entire being revolves around making Bucky miserable. And in the most meta way possible, it does. When Broadside Animation redesigned Bucky and requested that Rex cease the constant brutal torture, the animator was furious. His way to vent his frustration was being taken away from him. His work was being sanitized. At least, until he decided to create Giovanni. A vicarious way to continue demeaning Bucky at every possible opportunity. Giovanni is quite literally just another torture method made by Rex. He exists to make Bucky miserable. And yet, when you reach Layer 3 and find the zip file with the victims, one inclusion in Gary's file is weird. An audio recording of Bucky's fantastic fish stand. A storybook where he and Giovanni have a friendly competition on who cooks the better fish. It's silly, it's cute. Giovanni even has a rare moment of admitting he was wrong, admitting that he's hard on Bucky because he cares and doesn't want him to end up, quote, how others have. And even then, he doesn't really give Bucky any credit or apologize. And the story just ends. This was always odd to me, considering it really had nothing to do with the murders. It was just out of place. Until I found out that the zip file isn't a documentation of the murders. It serves as a collection of everything Bucky regrets. Alongside the murders themselves, despite how horribly cruel Giovanni has been to him, he still feels guilty about what happened to him, because he knows Giovanni's capable of kindness, even if it was just once, even if it's not directed at him. In the April Fool's update, Bucky says Giovanni probably cares deep down. Whether you view this as him being kind or just naive is up to you.
Hello, post-editing Grape here. As I was editing this, I came to a realization as I was editing the clips. When you finally get the tape from Husk that talks about Connor and Mark and what happened with the game, Giovanni is the starling that is front and center. Now, this has no other narrative purpose. Gary is not like a vital character. He's just one of the victims. So even, I don't know if Husk knows this or what, or if whatever happened, oh my god, no matter where he goes or what he does, Giovanni is just constantly fucking him over, dude. Front row seats to Bucky's downfall is crazy.
Wulf and Stumbler, along with being the best couple in all of fiction, are unique. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, they're aware of their existence in the game and who they're based on. In fact, they know more than Bucky does initially. Wulf resents the nature of his existence as a reflection of Connor, doing everything he can to be better, to be kinder. Stumbler's more ashamed, acknowledging that his existence was born out of malice, mockery, and flat-out ableism. Despite the identity crises and guilt, though, they have each other. They're trying to make a world where everyone's safe, protected from the same knowledge they have, protected from the monsters, in the form of the hotel. A world Bucky is barred from entering. Even now, everyone still looks at him as the driving force that set every horrible thing in motion. His mere presence is a threat, he's a security hazard. While Wulf and Stumbler can rely on each other for support through their struggles, Bucky's alone. He can't tell his friends, especially not Walter, what he knows and what he's seen. Everyone else wants nothing to do with him. Wulf keeps everyone at arm's length, despite being one of the only ones who would understand. It's heartbreaking knowing that despite how kind Bucky is deep down, he's isolated. Stumbler is really the only one he could possibly talk to. Stumbler talks directly to Bucky in a helping nub, not the player. He knows that Bucky's going to be put through Layer 3, and possibly beyond that. He wishes him luck, tells him he's proud of him, gives him as much help as he possibly can. In a way, Stumbler probably sympathizes with him. After all, Bucky's not the only one whose existence has violent ties to the real world. When I found out about the April Fool's update, I laughed. I saw the Garten of Ban reference, I saw Duncan talking about trinkets.
Oh shit! Bust it down, Duncan, yeah!
And I didn't give it the time of day. I genuinely ignored it for the longest time. And then, a few months later, I went through Pralson's video archive. And good God. If I needed direct evidence for any point I make in this video, the April Fool's update spoon feeds it to me. I've already brought the update up a few times in this video, but it was genuinely a gold mine. From Bucky outright saying he wishes he was dead, Husk taunting Bucky about the murders he didn't even commit, visiting the office where Nathan died, I was eating it up. As horrible as that sounds. The first one I ran into was Layer 2 office, a low-poly recreation of the building where Nathan Stewart was killed by Brandon. As soon as you teleport him inside, Bucky protests. There's a recreation of Olivia's death, a recreation of Gary's, but not one of Nathan. Just an empty office, and the Walter dweller hiding out of bounds. In the words of one of my friends, if Bucky had to see a recreation of Walter beaten to death with a chair, the balcony scene might have happened a lot sooner. In cutscene depths, I think that's really all you need to see. The final clip of note is Layer 1 empty. Husk taunts Bucky in a desolate version of the beach, tormenting him for seemingly no reason other than his own amusement.
Isn't it strange, Bucky? Everything that happened to these people, it has some scary resemblance to your friends, does it not? What did you do? I already know. You gotta figure that out still.
Between Husk's stupid evil monologues, the footage, Brandon's resemblance to him, and his breakdown in the previous clip, it's clear the vicarious guilt of the murders is beginning to weigh on Bucky. He resents his existence even more than he did before, resigning himself to a cycle of isolation and misery. More and more, the balcony scene begins to feel like a mercy. Okay, bit's over. This is the part we were all waiting for. The separation between Bucky and Brandon is made very obvious in Shipwrecked. Bucky, the character, feels the weight of Brandon's actions despite not committing them. And Brandon, the person behind the mascot, is forced into Bucky's image against his will. They're connected, viewed as the same concept despite being separate. In one of the out-of-bounds scenes in the April Fool's update, Wulf laments that no one will remember him when he dies, that when Stumbler is gone, he'll have no legacy. It's a bold thing to say to someone who's spent an entire game learning how horrific his own legacy is. It's also an important detail to note that the Starlings believe that they are the characters they're portraying, along with spotty memories of their previous lives and their deaths. After being converted into Starlings, they went through rigorous conditioning in order to make them as character-accurate as possible. As such, Brandon's mangled corpse in a costume is completely convinced he's the real Bucky, while also retaining some vague memories of his previous life. Hence his pop-up, "I still remember my face." So, I hear you ask, you've spent this whole video convincing me Bucky is this kind sweetheart, that he's the true victim. So why would the guy who thinks he's Bucky go on a murder spree? Because the real Bucky, the one we play as in Shipwrecked, is still perfectly capable of violence, under the proper circumstances. Upon seeing Olivia, the mascot actor for Olive, without her costume head on, Brandon, a newly converted Starling, believing that he's Bucky, becomes convinced that this strange woman is using Olive as a skin suit. In his fear, he kills her, and suddenly Olive is back. In reality, Olivia got turned into a Starling as well, but it's enough to convince Bucky that killing these impersonators will bring back his real friends. So he does the same to Gary, and then to Nathan. And I hear you say once more, but I thought you said Bucky wasn't a murderer. So I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. A trend I've noticed in the modern internet environment we live in is what's called all or nothing thinking. A character, or a concept, is either perfect and can do no wrong, or the most heinous, problematic wretch to walk God's green earth. And Bucky has somehow managed the feat of falling into both ends of this spectrum, depending on the person. Bucky, the character, doesn't fall into a good or evil box, to many people's dismay. He's not an innocent ooh-woo baby who can't take care of himself or make mistakes, so I'm sorry to the people who expected that to be the point of this video. He's also not a deranged, senseless murderer. Neither is Brandon. Bucky's a deeply kind and selfless character, but he's also prone to paranoia, a short temper, not very good at communicating his feelings. Can be impulsive, assumes he's cursed or that everyone is out to get him, and it makes him unstable. He grew up too fast, he's used to taking care of himself and his friends all on his own. The same applies to Brandon. Brandon was a drug addict, manipulated and taken advantage of by a huge corporation who couldn't care less about him. He was not William Afton II Electric Boogaloo. In Brandon's mind, he's killing the monsters who have taken his friends away. Brandon murders not because he's a guy in a horror series wearing a mascot costume. Brandon murders because that's what could happen if Bucky's paranoia is left unchecked. All this to say, Bucky being capable of impulsive violence does not make him an evil murderer. It makes him realistic. Shipwrecked firmly portrays Bucky and Brandon as separate, Brandon as the monster and Bucky as the victim. Until you find out that the Starling was just as paranoid as the real Bucky, killing out of pure terrified delusion. And then, you find out, in Hotel 09, Bucky is an obstacle for Howls, just like Brandon had been for Bucky. It's honestly a really impactful parallel. It shows how much everything has been affecting Bucky, how his paranoia is bringing out the worst in him, and how the admirable trait of caring about Walter has twisted out of control. If you thought my insanely detailed deep dive into Bucky's friends was irrelevant, this is why it was relevant. When Bucky's separated from his friends in the hotel, that's when his paranoia starts to spiral. That's when he gets out of control. Just like Brandon, when he doesn't have his friends, he starts to come apart at the seams. And this is why the point, why does this even matter, gets under my skin. By portraying Bucky as a killer, making no distinction between him and Brandon, the entire internet has fallen for the game's facade, and thus done a disservice to the writing. Despite Bucky's direct dialogue talking about how discontent he is with his physical similarities to Brandon, despite his entire arc in Shipwrecked being that he feels he will never be able to escape the actions of his mascot actor, it simply isn't acknowledged. Bucky and Brandon are both victims, and they are also both antagonists. Brandon is in constant torment, stripped of his identity, experimented on, expected to exist in a world he can no longer understand, which leads to the murders. Bucky was tortured by his creator, and then forced to watch as Rex was acclaimed for it, all while he had no control of his existence. In-universe, he grew up far too fast, forced to be a caregiver when he was still a child. One of his only friends is a walking torture method, and then he finds out someone is using his skin to kill people. When he's isolated and left to wallow in his paranoia, he becomes as much of a threat as Brandon is. It doesn't help when, in Shipwrecked, Bucky sees "Who are you?" staring him in the face, only to be met with a hangman of Brandon's name and the statue in his image. You can say I'm overanalyzing what are essentially clickbait thumbnails, but I don't think that's true. Just because Bucky looks the way he does doesn't mean he doesn't deserve the same consideration and analysis as other horror game characters. Appearances are deceiving. Facades can be convincing. Whether it's Bucky or Brandon or the island or the game itself, nothing is what it seems to be. There's a remarkable strength in how he's remained as kind as he is despite his circumstance, despite his past of torture. It's just that now, he's beginning to crack under the pressure.
Okay, so, welcome to my humble abode. My server
Hello.
that I totally didn't just make right now.
It's so cool.
This server that has existed for years since Discord was created.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
first things first,
Yes.
for the court record, is all of this character stuff actually intentional, or am I just looking way too deep into things?
No, it is. I originally intended Bucky to be like as fleshed out as possible, and you were like the first person I've noticed at least who's caught on to a lot of this shit, and it does bother me because like I have seen so many thumbnails. They're just like, dude, Bucky, but he's evil. Oh my god. You were the first person who's actually taking the time to stop and think about that, and it drives me mad. It was right there.
No, because like those thumbnails, dude, they kill me. As much as I joke around, bro, they kill me. Just like Bucky killed Olive and Giovanni, apparently.
Yeah, that actually happened. Clearly.
Yeah, real thing.
Yeah, there's footage. There's footage, guys.
It's a real canon thing. Oh my god, we got it on tape. Bucky
Holy
did it,
shit.
dude. No way.
He admitted it too. Holy
He
shit,
admitted
it. Yay.
So like on that note though, what are some of like the biggest misconceptions you've seen? Like like common traits you see people give Bucky that you don't really agree with?
Okay, what is it? One thing I've seen a lot out of people is they act like his little like freak out when he's in the jail cell. That most people who play the game act like it's totally out of left field, as if he wasn't asking you to stop like 2 whole layers ago.
Yeah.
They treat it like it's out of character. Like, oh my god, guys, this kid's character is getting mad at me. Like, dude, what have you been doing for the past 3 hours to get here in the first place? What?
No, like, dude, this was totally out of left field. We couldn't have seen this coming.
We could have never predicted this. Oh, holy shit!
Holy shit!
Yeah, it's like it's so stupid. It's like a lot of people act like him doing that is out of character. We already know is he's a very reactive individual. Who kind of like he doesn't act well under pressure. Yeah. And he's already stressed out as is. You put him through all this shit, and you're getting mad at him because he's like, he's upset at you for not only having him witness all that shit in the first place. Like, now he's getting caught and thrown into a prison cell, and he's pissed off. Like it's not his fault by any means, you know.
No, dude, he's cartoon character. Cartoon character not allowed to be mad. Don't you get it?
I understand now.
This is basic character writing, dude.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that, I'm afraid.
Hounds.
What the fuck? No one's gonna get that joke or putting it on YouTube.
It's fine. I'll cut it. It's fine.
God, yeah. Yeah.
So this is something I've actually been curious for a while, which I have like a vague idea, but I'm still curious. Is there a reason Bucky has such a huge grudge against Rex, but still seems to tolerate Giovanni, despite them having a very similar demeanor towards Bucky?
Okay, well the thing is, he kind of sees Rex almost like in the vein of like a father figure who just does not like him and has treated him shittily the entire time he's known him.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, but coming back later to flaunt his success, like, oh my god, look it, I'm so proud of this stupid beaver I made. Well, I spent like the first years of his creation putting him through the ringer because I found it funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like Giovanni hates Bucky a lot, clearly, and there's a lot of tension between them. But he's at least honest about it. He doesn't go around parading how proud he is of like Bucky after demeaning him.
Yeah.
He's at least clear about how he feels.
Mm-hmm.
So he can at least tolerate that. So he at least like feels like it's honest.
Mm-hmm.
But with Rex, it's just like, yeah, no, this guy, he's nice about me to everyone but me specifically. And he's like a piece of shit to everyone. Like he's a piece of shit to me specifically. Mm-hmm. With everyone else, he doesn't mind though.
Like at least Giovanni has the decency to be honest about the fact that he hates me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is.
And he's not profiting off of it. He does it for his own. He does it for his own enjoyment.
He does it for the sport. Fuck.
He's being a good sport. Jesus.
God, dude. Giovanni's such a fucking. He's a piece of shit of a character, but like I love him at the same time for that exact reason.
No, same. He's
God,
such.
I want to strangle you, but at the same time, you're so cool. Fuck.
So, have you considered like character-wise, have you considered other storytelling mediums, like more along the lines of like Broadside Beach stuff or comics, or leaning more into writing and stuff?
Okay, what is it? I've been wanting to remake the first few Broadside Beach episodes for a while, but I've also had like concepts flickering out for like other episodes that run adjacent to the original two that I had planned. Because I had a lot planned originally. It was gonna be like a 3-part analog horror series, which was terrible for the record. I am not a big fan of that stuff. But past that point, there's other things I had planned out, specifically with originally Hotel 9, which, you know, it's this massive fucking game now, but originally the idea was just it was going to be like in 2022, I think, it was going to be just like a one-off episode. It was almost like a side story, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped caring about that concept after a while. And
Yeah.
it kind of went back to what it is now.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't mind trying out more like one-off episodes in the future, just about like smaller elements of the story I haven't been able to elaborate on much yet.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, they're probably just like either the games or like the YouTube channels. I have like 6 of them now at this point, I think. Which one would consider it mental illness. I just consider it being good at writing ARGs, but it's
No, you're just the collector.
Really.
You're just collecting the YouTube channels.
Yeah, like it's so cool. See, just trying to think of, like, you know, I definitely do have like at least 6 in this ARG. That's a problem. Yeah. God.
So, with Hotel 09, I know Bucky's not really the focus of it, but I assume he's gonna get like some character update and development stuff in Hotel 09.
Absolutely. There's a lot of Bucky shit in there, which like some of it I can't really properly get into right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot. Some would say too much for a game that's not about him, but I don't care.
It's fine. He's cool. He deserves
Kinda.
it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look of stuff. I had some stuff written down, and some of it I'm like, this sucks now that I'm looking at it.
So I ate it. It's gone now.
I asked that already. I'm stupid. Oh, this one. I'm very curious about this. Knowing what we know now about Walter's parents and his childhood, if Bucky could say anything to Walter's parents, what do you think he would say?
Let me put on the voice real quick. Fuck you!
Deserved.
Definitely that.
Good. Absolutely deserved.
Those pieces of shit.
They suck, man.
I almost considered yelling a second "fuck you," but I'm in like a college dorm. Like I would sound like I'm going insane. my poor fucking roommate hears like Marge Simpson screaming.
Marge Simpson.
I've heard Bucky's voice be compared to Marge Simpson so many times, and it's like my least favorite thing ever.
Oh my god. I can't even see where people would get. I mean, like, I guess the
raspiness of it, maybe, but
but like, I don't really hear it.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Weird. God. Yeah. I don't know. People are just tripping, I think. I would hope so, at least. I don't want my main character to sound like fucking Marge Simpson.
Okay, I'm not really sure if I have anything else, honestly. But thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course. I like sharing shit about my characters. It's funny.
It is funny. I enjoy it very much. I enjoy the silly goobers.
I can't believe we finally we finally gotten Bucky out of prison.
We finally got him out after all those murders he committed, dude. We finally got bail. And then I just need to cut out this bit with us watching Birdemic.
Is this from recording the whole time? Oh,
yeah, I forgot to shut it off. I should probably shut it off.
I'm so sorry.
Bucky is paradoxical. A group leader with no real power, the brave protagonist driven to immediate panic when things don't go according to plan. He holds a vitriolic grudge against Rex while giving Giovanni a million second chances. Everyone seems to hate him for being the catalyst of these horrible things, despite him having no control over any aspect of his life. He's agonizingly human in his insecurity and his snarkiness, but so dehumanized in the way he's forcibly detached from the player and the world around him, so separate from his human mascot, and yet so similar. Bucky is more human and engaging than 99% of the media I've engaged with, horror or not, and I honestly just really wanted an excuse to talk about him. Researching for this felt like opening one door after another, finding more and more layers to his character. And I think that's what makes him so brilliant. He's a deceptively complex character. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time, and stuff kept getting in the way. Mostly because I could no longer stand the way Bucky's treated by the internet. And before I get comments, I want to clarify, I don't have anything against MatPat or GT Live, etc. Obligatory clarification that this is all in good fun. I get it, being a YouTuber is hard, clickbait is what sells. But I simply cannot let this anti-Bucky propaganda go unanswered. And I also just wouldn't feel right letting all of this work go unnoticed. It pains me when Shipwrecked is lumped in with soulless cash grabs simply because of its aesthetic, when it's clear how much care and love was put into this game. I know this is probably a melodramatic yap session to 90% of the internet, but I hope it at least gave a few people a different perspective, or was validating to people who love this game and these characters as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching. Obligatory leave a like or comment if you enjoyed, and make sure to keep an eye out for Hotel Investigation 09. Some awesome people made a doc to catch up newcomers on the game. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Special thanks to Squeaks D'Corgeh for helping with research, and to him and Emily J for providing the amazing dialogue for Bucky, Giovanni, and Olive. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Oh my god, my fucking back, dude. I have been hunched over in my closet for what time is it? I've been hunched over in my closet for 4 hours. Jesus Christ.